Every night Vera, a young widow, heard faint whispers emanating from the shadows. At first she tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination, the result of the grief that had engulfed her after her husband's death. However, with each passing day the whispers grew louder and more distinct, and the presence in the house felt stronger. It seemed as though someone was walking through the house, creaking the floorboards, and watching her from dark corners. Vera had lost her husband suddenly. An automobile accident took his life. He had been her support, her love, her everything. Now that he was gone, she felt lost, like a child lost in a dark forest. The home that had once been a cozy nest had become cold and foreign. At night, she often woke up with the feeling that someone was standing by her bed, watching her. When she opened her eyes, no one was there, but the sense of presence didn't go away. Vera thought it was just her imagination, but gradually she started noticing strange things. Wet footprints appeared on the floor, doors opened and closed by themselves, and sometimes a silhouette flashed in the mirror. One night, as she lay in bed, she thought she heard her husband's voice. He called her name, whispered words of love and forgiveness. Vera sat up in bed, her heart pounding like crazy. She listened into the darkness, and the voice repeated its message. Vera screamed, urging her husband to show himself. In response, a cold wind swept through the room, making the curtains flutter. From then on, the nightly visits became regular. Her husband's ghost came every night, whispering to her about his suffering, begging for help. Vera was on the verge of insanity. She tried to find an explanation for what was happening, but no one could help her. Neighbors thought she was crazy, friends avoided her. Vera was alone in her nightmare. One night, her husband's voice became particularly insistent. He told her she needed to go to the church to free his soul. Vera didn't understand why the church, but she had no other choice. She decided to follow the ghost's advice, hoping it would end her torment. Vera made her way to the old church on the outskirts of town. It was an ancient, abandoned building, surrounded by a dense forest. She walked through the dark streets, a cold wind cutting through her to the bone. When she reached the church, the moon had disappeared behind clouds, and a gloomy silence reigned around. She opened the creaky door and stepped inside. It was dark and damp, the walls covered in mold, and it smelled musty. Vera walked down the central aisle, heading toward the altar. She didn't know what she needed to do, but felt an unknown force guiding her. Suddenly, a light appeared in the air. Right in front of her, the ghost of her husband materialized. He looked just as she remembered him, tall, with dark hair and kind eyes. But his face was distorted with agony. "Vera," he said, his voice echoing in the empty church hall. "You came. Thank you." "What do I need to do?" Vera asked, her voice trembling with fear and excitement. "My soul cannot find peace," the ghost replied. "I am bound to this place because of my sins. You must help me, Vera. You must free me." Tears streamed down Vera's face. She felt her husband's pain and suffering. She didn't know how to help him, but she was willing to do whatever it took. The ghost pointed to an old stone cross standing behind the altar. "There, under the cross, lies a book. It is a book of spells that can free me. Read it aloud, and I will find peace." Vera approached the cross, moved it aside, and found the book, covered in dust and cobwebs. She opened it and began reading the spells. The words were written in an ancient language, but strangely enough, Vera understood them. She read, and her voice grew louder and more confident. As soon as she spoke the last word, the church shook. Her husband's ghost began to glow with a bright light, and his face lit up with joy. "Thank you, Vera," he said, and his image began to fade. "Now I am free." The light went out, and the ghost vanished. Vera was alone in the dark church. But she no longer felt fear. She knew she had done everything she could and freed her husband's soul. Now she could live on, knowing that his spirit had found peace. She walked out of the church and felt her heart fill with warmth. The night was quiet and calm, and Vera knew her husband was now in a better place. She returned home, ready to start a new life, free from fear and pain.